Hello, I'm Alex. You may know me as host of Night of the Batman, but I'm here today to talk about something different. Before I begin, let's go ahead and set up three major problems people seem to have with this movie. I'm talking, of course, about Man of Steel. Number one is Superman kills someone. Number two, the tone is too dark. And number three, property damage in Metropolis / emotionless acting. Okay, in this review I will attempt to give reasons why these complaints are either invalid or how the story in general is different from how general audience / critics seem to see it. I will also be discussing my thoughts on the movie and how it was close to the source material while still creating something new, and sum it up with final thoughts and a final score. Alright, number one, Superman kills someone. This person is Zod. People who have seen this movie have issues with this scene, and so did I, at first. Until right after that, he breaks down and cries. It's not like in Tim Burton's Batman, where Batman kills left and right with zero remorse for his actions. Superman didn't want to kill. He was forced to after Zod refused to stop trying to kill a family. Number two, the tone is too dark. This is one of the biggest complaints brought against this film. I think general audience members walked in expecting it to be lighthearted and funny, or more like the Richard Donner Superman movie from the 70s. But what people forget is that that movie had its dark moments too, like the main love interest dying before Superman reversed time. Also, I think certain people still have this idealized picture of what Superman is and what a movie about him should be. And I'm sorry, but no movie can live up to the certain fans' standards. This movie, despite its emphasis on heavy sci-fi elements, set out to be one thing: to examine the man behind the red cape, to find out who is underneath and try its best to depict what might happen if someone like Superman appeared suddenly in our world. Despite the action, it's not your typical summer blockbuster, and I appreciate it for that. Number three, property damage in Metropolis / emotionless acting. The property damage that Supes and Zod and his buddies create bothered me at first because I, like general audience and critics, thought, why would he not fight him in a deserted place somewhere? Then I realized he can't. These guys are on the same power level as him, so he can't force them to fight somewhere else. Superman is fighting on their terms. Also, a lot of people brought up that there were a lot of casualties. Superman must have been causing while smashing Zod through buildings. This didn't bother me because I thought back to the scene right before the fight in Metropolis where they cleared everyone out of the buildings. So no innocent people were killed. No, as for emotionless, bland acting, I can say that most of the main cast turned in good performances. Henry Cavill was great. I especially liked the moments where he learned he could fly, as you could see him react very happily, too, like anyone else would. Also, something about the way he delivered his lines and his general presence as Superman were great. Amy Adams was great, as always, showing us an even more modern and edgier take on Lois, while finding the right balance with Superman where she doesn't seem less smart when she's around him. And I also found myself not being bothered by her red hair because her performance was so good, I didn't care. Michael Shannon as Zod was great. I'm glad they decided to do something new with the character by making him less of a villain and more of a conqueror. Having him show remorse over killing innocents in Jor-El, but at the same time seeing himself in the right, was a great touch. Russell Crowe was great as Jor-El, and so were the rest of the cast, which included a few Smallville cast members, such as the assistant to Dr. Hamilton being Alessandro Giuliani, who played Hamilton in Smallville, to name one. Okay, now I'm done defending this movie. Let's get to what I thought of the movie with my review. Man of Steel review. I noticed something very important about this movie. It came from a very simple place, too, but it spoke volumes about the tone and the direction of the movie. When I went to a movie theater site looking for showtimes for The Man of Steel, I read the little blurb that described the basic premise of the movie, and it said this: a young itinerant worker is forced to confront his secret extraterrestrial heritage when Earth is invaded by members of his race. Now, most superhero movies would be more direct and epic, but I challenge anyone to put that description next to any sci-fi movie and try to tell me it was a Superman movie, let alone a superhero movie. The movie isn't as mainstream as other superhero movies are either. It has ideas from the comics, like that Krypton had genetically grown people who were engineered for certain tasks. This movie is not mainly about a good guy trying to stop a bad guy. It's about a man's journey to discover who he is. About his trials and tribulations to become the symbol we know from the comics. Speaking of the comics, I love how before he flew, he leaped long distances like Superman started out doing in the comics. They also conveyed how hard it would be to have all those powers at once through clever parts where young Clark and also Zod get sensory overload to the point where it physically hurts them. They showed all these scenes without Clark coming off as whiny. That's right, I'm looking at you, Superman Returns. Also, I love the little Easter eggs throughout the movie. For fans of the comics, some I missed, to be honest. Like how the missile shot at Clark had a Wayne Tech emblem on it. You'd think the guy who reviews Batman regularly would pick up on that. I also like how Lois was chasing after Superman, and her fascination for him started long before they even met. Similar to the comics, how she wants to find out the secrets Superman is hiding while also being attracted to him. I also like how they didn't choose to take anything from the Superman movie and made the surroundings and technology of Krypton very foreign and new, with things like flying creatures and weird metal that acts as a key, and also screens for messages. And finally, we get to see Superman at full power, beating the tar out of Zod and his allies. This movie is great, because it defies your expectations and does something you weren't expecting. I think that's why some people have such a big problem with it, and that's why other people really like it. Final thoughts and rating. I like this movie a lot. If I could say one negative, is that for me, it took until the middle for it to really pick up, to where I really got invested in the story. I would recommend this to any comic book fan out there, with the exception of some purists and fanboys. With a stellar cast and engaging new take on The Man of Steel, this movie deserves a perfect 5 out of 5. Thanks for watching. I'd like to know what your favorite Superman story is, and which villain you think could be great for the sequel, or which one you would prefer over Zod. I'm still hoping we get a big budget Brainiac at some point. Okay guys, if you like this video and you want to see more, please like, comment, subscribe.